Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is from Tampa Bay Times. How the Pinellas Sheriff's Office boosts its rape stats without solving cases. Where have we heard this before, you guys? Remember those articles I had shared with various, it happened in New York as well, they lost rape kits, allegedly. Kind of sounds like the behavior of the LAPD, doesn't it? It's my opinion. None of these cases I reviewed were properly or thoroughly investigated, said a retired criminal investigator who reviewed 11 of the cleared cases for the Times. And then the graphic is from Lisa Merklin, and the story is by Allison Ross, Times staff, dated January 5th, 2020. Stupid ads. It took 3 months for Alicia to feel ready to tell sheriff's deputies that she had been raped by an acquaintance. Don't worry, they won't do anything about it. Sound like Purge? It took 8 days for Pinellas investigators to close her case. Isn't that great? You guys know what I say. Birds of an MF feather, right? They didn't interview the suspect. They didn't arrest him. To remind you of the LAPD, how they never want to look at your videos. Instead, they put Alicia's case in an obscure statistical category that made it appear to have been solved. Isn't that wonderful? The designation called exceptionally cleared is supposed to be used sparingly in circumstances where police departments have enough evidence to arrest someone but can't for reasons out of their control. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office has used it to close some cases where it hadn't identified a suspect, assigned a detective, or even confirmed that a crime had occurred. A Tampa Bay Times investigation has found. Does that sound like men that care about women? It's very similar to how Streets LA was talking about the disparity and the differences of the population of LAPD. It's, I believe, something like 20% women, something like that. You wonder why? Do you wonder why? My theory is misogyny and narcissism. Okay, I'll continue. The designation called, okay, I already read that. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office has used it to close some cases where it hadn't identified a suspect. Okay, I did read that. Let's see here. The Times examined files detailing more than 80 rape cases that were exceptionally cleared by the agency from 2014 through 2018. It found dozens of cases that had not been investigated enough to be put in that category. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but it does make me wonder how many Pinellas County sheriffs have been guilty of sexual assault themselves, or police officers in that county. The sheriff's office justified closing most of the cases. Unreal. Hate to be their wives, wouldn't you guys? After concluding the victims didn't want to move forward. Well, great to blame the victim, because you know everyone always does, don't they? But at times investigators use techniques that could have discouraged victims. Oh, I'm familiar with that. According to experts who reviewed the files for the Times. Pinellas is not alone in routinely using the exceptional category for rapes. Just put alongside all the bad things that have happened and continue to happen in various military forces where they keep trying to put under the rug all the sexual assaults of the women. I'm talking about the women. I don't want to go down the other road because they do love to minimize the women's rapes. You know, they love to do that. Times analysis found that from 2014 through 2018, a third of Florida's largest law enforcement agencies closed more rape cases by exceptional clearance than by arrest. Isn't that great? Including the sheriff's offices in Hillsborough and Pinellas. But the Times examination shows Pinellas to be a stark example of how departments can fail to solve our cases yet get credit anyways. Oh, they are good at that, aren't they? We got to give them that. All these various police agencies, they're really good at getting credit and getting awards and all that stuff. From 2014 to 2018, Pinellas made arrests in only 15% of its rape cases. I mean, I'd have to understand how the investigations work, but I imagine they could arrest more. Less than all but 2 other large departments in Florida. And yet, because of how the agency applied the exceptional classification, that's throughout, you guys, you see. Pinellas reported clearing more than half of its R cases. That record keeping raised its overall standing, placing it in the top half among the 25 largest departments in Florida. Isn't that great? Don't solve crimes, but then get credit and what is that word? Rig your stats, basically. Change the numbers. They're always good at doing this. Wish I could read that. It's very small print. But if you guys want to go and read it, you can go see by county how everything is broken down. After being asked by the Times, Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri conceded his agency improperly categorized some rape cases. He downplayed it. They're so good at that, aren't they? However, by saying that all those cases weren't moving forward anyways, regardless of their categorization. Well, they weren't moving forward because you guys weren't moving forward. It's a fact. He said that some of the cases his agency classified as exceptionally cleared would not even have been reported as ours by other agencies in the Tampa Bay area. Oh, do tell. We want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Why is it not in our case? Please tell us. Gaslighting anyone? At least our data, see, that's what I said, they're manipulating the data. Shows the crime even if it is over-reported. If it's over-reported, please explain what you mean. I'm trying not to snap out, you guys. I'm getting like that snap out feeling. The closure for some cases. Gualtieri said. He said he is satisfied with the quality of his department's R investigations. Does that sound like the LAPD chief? It does, doesn't it? And called working on cases where victims don't cooperate. Can you? Oh, you guys, I'm starting to freaking feel that anger. These are women that have been raped. You see how he's talking about them? I'm going to try not to lose my shit today. Gualtieri added that some people who report being raped may not cooperate because they are lying. Isn't that great, you guys? So he just deduces this from the thin air, right? Does this sound like men that might be into the same thing? You guys, wake up. I'm so irritated right now. He described S workers shaking down clients for money and spouses trying to cover up consensual affairs. Does that remind you of all the police officers that have been busted with sex workers? Hello? This boils my blood, you guys. Some of these victims, they're doing it for their own vindictive reasons. Oh my God, you guys. I didn't know what I was heading into here. Because, women want to be hard, right? We get those. Every victim is not a true victim. These men don't need to be in the police force. And this guy is he's a sheriff. He's the head honcho? And that's his attitude toward women? You guys. I think the purge really is going to happen, but it's not going to be the people that the Illuminati want purged. Oh my God, this is just irritating me so bad. I did not know what I was heading into here, you guys. And the fact that Tampa Bay Times can even print this garbage is unreal. The quantity of false R allegations is difficult to measure. Is it now? It's easy. All you have to do is get the man's you-know-what. That's it. So easy. Like the rape kits that disappeared. But research by who? Men? Has put it in the range of 2% to 10%. That's the false R allegations. Clearly, the person reporting this didn't do any research at all. It's obvious. Here's another generic experts say statement. Don't you love those? No citing. The day that I came from, you were supposed to cite where you got your sources from. You don't just run off at the mouth. And you don't quote misogynistic, narcissistic sheriff's department people. Experts say it is not unusual for sexual assault victims to stop cooperating after reporting a crime. That does happen. They may fear facing their attacker, worry no one will believe them, or come under outside pressure. Those problems can be made worse if investigators mishandle cases. Rachel Lovell, a research assistant professor at Case Western Reserve University, said that closing cases before they're fully investigated can let serial rapists go free. Of course it can. Birds of an MF feather. How many corrections officers have been busted for this? How many police officers have been busted for this? How many sheriffs have been busted for this? And those are the ones that get caught. Because this case didn't get prosecuted, there's another victim and another victim, she said. Yes. At least she got some quotes from someone who has some common sense. Two experts, there's more generic experts, who reviewed Pinellas cases, the experts we don't know who they are. By the Times, both pointed out flaws and missteps. Shouldn't have even been quoting that sheriff. That was misogyny. None of these cases I reviewed were properly or thoroughly investigated. Facts, said Russell Strand. Well, at least we got a man on our side. A retired criminal investigator with the U.S. Army. You guys know. Who reviewed 11 cases. Although a few of them demonstrated some good quality investigative work, every case I reviewed had outstanding leads that could, if properly pursued, have changed the outcome of the case. Imagine that. So it's not because they won't cooperate. Sheriff, makes me really wonder what you do on your off time. Oh, God, this is just too much, you guys. Closed in one day. In Florida, more than 7,000 people reported RAPES, or attempted RAPES every year. Those are the ones that are reported, you guys. Wonder how many unreported R's go, especially of law enforcement that are women. Those are the ones that really go unreported. Right police officers, right sheriffs, right army. Only about a quarter of those reports result in an arrest. Fewer end in conviction. The handling of our cases has become under increased scrutiny in the era of the Me Too movement. It's about time. Grandmothers and aunts, times are changing. We're tired. Which has included high-profile examples of victims coming forward years later to report attacks. In federal statistics, arrests are lumped together with exceptional clearances to calculate a police agency's clearance rate. Yeah, they're fixing their stats. A common measurement of how effective agencies are at solving crimes. They don't solve them. They don't solve them. Galtieri, the Galtieri misogynist here, himself has characterized clearances as solved, while touting his agency's overall clearance. Touting, what does that remind you guys of? You guys know what's up. Overall clearance rate during a presentation to country... I didn't want to read this. I don't even want to read what he says, you guys. I'm just going to skip it. It's all gaslighting. But when asked to clarify, Galtieri, Galtieri the misogynist, it's my opinion, told the Times last week that cleared and solved were very different. Really now? Do tell. And that his agency has never characterized an exceptional closer as solving a case. Well, please explain all the victims that are lying. We really do want to know. You can't just go around saying that. You don't like women, Galtieri? Lovell, the Case Western Reserve University researcher, said confusion arises because people think cleared means solved. No, what are they saying this for? Nobody said they thought it was solved. See the gaslighting? The exceptional category has been used since the 1930s, when crime statistics began being tracked nationally. It's all a show, you guys. The federal government doesn't specify every situation where the category is allowed, but it gives some examples. The suspect has died, we can hope, right? Is being prosecuted in another jurisdiction, or has been identified, but the victim won't help prosecutors make the case. That does happen sometimes, but they're really leaning on that one. It's making me sick. Even then, there are a few simple rules. Law enforcement must have identified. How about this rule? Law enforcement should not rape women. Hey, I'm putting it out there. Law enforcement must have identified and located the suspect and have enough evidence to charge them with a crime and turn the case over to prosecutors. Is it any wonder why our country is in the state it's in? In Pinellas, more than a quarter of the exceptionally cleared R cases reviewed by the Times were closed before a suspect was identified. When a suspect, and then he brings up sex workers. What did sex workers have to do with anything? Has nothing to do with our cases. Maybe you guys should stop sleeping with them. It's my opinion. When a suspect was named in the file, they were interviewed only about a third of the time. Isn't that great, you guys? They don't even get an interview. Oh, this is just boiling my blood, you guys. In 2014, a woman told a deputy she'd been R'd by a stranger in a white work van. She had a black eye. She could have probably even given him the license plate. They wouldn't have done anything. She had a black eye and a swollen lip, but she declined to get a R kit done or have her body photographed. Oh, yeah, you guys see how they just use a generic example? A white van? Sounds like a trafficking van. Hello? A deputy went to the scene with a victim and found tire marks. Another deputy spoke with a nearby store clerk who confirmed the woman told him that she had just been R'd. The report noticed inconsistencies. Why are they putting this in here, you guys? It's easy. All you would have had... I'm sick of this already. The report noted inconsistencies. You mean let's just call it what it is. The officers are saying they noted inconsistencies. Eye of the beholder, you guys. Even though the store clerk solidified what had happened, the case was exceptionally cleared in one day, citing the woman was not wanting to cooperate. It's always her fault, isn't it? Maybe you guys need new officers, new sheriffs. Do you guys see why they don't want too many women on the forces? Do you guys see why? You guys see why now, right? The agency never assigned a detective or identified a suspect. Of course not. Birds of a MF feather. The woman's name was redacted from the report, as were all cases reviewed by the Times. Okay, in 2015, a woman reported that she had been RAPED earlier that year. She had just learned her assailant had been released from jail in a human trafficking case. Wow, I must be psychic. And wanted to make sure he went back behind bars. It took 2 weeks for a detective to call her back. You guys see? You see why they don't want a lot of women on the forces? Is it making sense now? The 5 paragraphs he wrote in the case file don't include any details of the assault. Of course they don't. Am I paranoid now, you guys? Am I paranoid now? Instead, the file describes a detective telling the woman her case would be hard to prosecute, given her delay in reporting. Well, there's an ounce of truth to that, but he should be doing his job. The detective wrote, you guys know how much we've seen about what the detectives do, right? They're in the club. You get it? The detective wrote that he told the woman the human trafficking case was still pending. Isn't that great? You guys don't think some of them are in on this stuff? Come on. The woman expressed a great deal of relief and said she did not feel a need to pursue a criminal investigation. He listed the case as exceptionally cleared and moved on. Galtieri, I don't like this guy. Galtieri said it's possible there was more conversation that wasn't documented. See how they gaslight? It doesn't matter. Do your job. He said the 2-week lag may have been the detective playing phone tag with the woman. Do you see how they lie? Look at him. Those dead eyes. These are the people they put in charge of these sheriff's departments and police departments. With all the misogyny, the sexual harassment, and things that go on with the female officers. All of the reported, not the ones we have not heard about. The R's of the women by the sheriffs, by the police officers, by the correctional officers. You've seen a pattern? He said he saw no issues with how the case was investigated. Doesn't matter, Sheriff, we see a problem. We don't care what you say, but conceded that it probably should not have been categorized as exceptionally cleared. But Strand, the retired Army investigator, I give this guy props at least. It seems like he's got some ethical, moral standards, which is hard to find nowadays. Identified problems with the way the case was handled. Did you hear that, Galtieri? Galtieri. Galtieri. The way the case was handled. It was not good, Galtieri. Wake up. I keep telling you guys, a lot of these police officers and sheriffs would never make it in the military. Never. Never. Bunch of babies. The victim was basically told the case wouldn't go anywhere, so why bother, he said. Birds of a feather. Strands to the delay in reporting should never be the basis for not pursuing a case. Facts. This was, in my opinion, an inadequate response to a report of a serious felony, he said. Coming forward, Alicia waited months to tell law enforcement that one of her ex-boyfriend's friends had R'd her. The Times agreed to use only her first name to protect her privacy. At the time, she had a drug problem and a history of interactions with law enforcement. Guys, catch that? She began dating her ex-boyfriend again shortly after the incident and was worried he would not believe her. But one day, as they were driving past a police station, she broke down in tears and told him. She said they called the sheriff's office the same day. Well, her boyfriend was doing the right thing there. She told investigators she agreed to go to a hotel because they had been drinking for hours. You see what they're doing here. She was too intoxicated to drive home. Doesn't mean she deserved to be R'd because she trusted someone to give her a ride home. Does not mean that she deserved to be R'd. Her memories of what had happened after that have stuck with her. That she had been surprised to see only one bed in the room, and that she'd stay on the hotel balcony for hours, waiting until he fell asleep. That when she finally lay down, he rolled onto her. That she repeatedly said she didn't want to have S with him and tried to squirm away. That's R. That's the R word. It's not the S word. That she tried to avoid eye contact as she laid underneath him. That's R-A-P-E. It's not S-E-X. It's an act of violence. The detectives were polite. Alicia said even understanding. But they spent more than half an hour telling her how problematic her case was. They're trying to dissuade her. Do you guys see? That's dereliction of duty. That's behavior unbecoming of an officer. Need I go on? All we have in these police departments and sheriff's departments mostly are thugs. There's some good ones out there, but they're not the majority. They asked her to call the suspect with a detective recording the conversation to see if he would admit to the R. Alicia couldn't imagine him doing that. She figured the detectives were probably right that her case wouldn't go anywhere, so they dissuaded her. They just didn't want to do the work. Are these men that care about women? Come on, you guys. Finally, Alicia agreed to sign a form saying she didn't want to go forward. Yeah, because they talked her out of it. It's disgusting. Signing cases away. Many experts say agencies shouldn't pressure potential victims to decide whether they want to prosecute early in an investigation. Yeah, it's called dereliction of duty. Some advise against asking them to sign a written statement. Doesn't that sound like how they get people to sign non-disclosure agreements? Some advise against asking them to sign a written statement, like the one given to Alicia that says they don't want to press charges. That's their get-out-of-jail-free card right there. Most of the Pinellas cases reviewed by the Times included mention of victims signing non-prosecution forms. More than half of the forms were signed the same day the R was reported. Oh, that is disgusting. It's disgusting. Sounds like Pinellas County needs to be investigated themselves and not internal investigations. Galtieri said the forms help avoid confusion. Oh, so someone who's been gaslighting through the whole article. A number of Tampa Bay law enforcement agencies use them, including the Pasco County and Hillsborough County Sheriff's offices, although agencies have different rules about how and when to use them, just like the non-disclosure agreements. Here's that stupid word again. Experts and advocates say the forms can give law enforcement an excuse to not fully investigate felony R complaints. Yeah, it's a felony, cops. So if you ever think it's okay to do that to someone, you should think twice. Especially if signed early in an investigation and can deter victims from returning if they later decide they do want to prosecute. Investigations should not be based only on a traumatized victim's perceived ability to participate right after the event, said Ann Munch, a former Colorado prosecutor and consultant to the U.S. Department of Justice. Crime should be investigated thoroughly, with victims being kept informed and in the loop and presented with the conversation after the investigation is completed. A Pinellas deputy in 2016 closed a case of attempted R after having a woman sign such a form. Maybe these officers think violence against women is okay. Kind of sounds like it, doesn't it? Inquiring minds want to know. Gattieri. Two witnesses walked in to find a man on top of the woman. They even had witnesses who was unconscious. He had pushed her legs apart, hiked her dress up, and had his hands in his pants, about to pull out his you-know-what, the witness said. The deputy spoke with the witnesses and the woman, who said she did not remember the incident and didn't want to go to court. See how they try to make it always the victim? The deputy then had the woman sign a non-prosecution form. According to the witnesses, she had been passed out, intoxicated less than 2 hours earlier. I'm going to have to go do an investigation in Pinellas County. The deputy attempted to contact the suspect but failed. They tried to reach him by phone? I bet you they did. How much do you guys bet all these lazy sheriffs did was make a phone call? Which obviously the man's not going to answer the phone. No detective was ever assigned. The case was exceptionally cleared that day. Munch reviewed the case for the Times and said she was surprised it wasn't pursued given that there were 2 eyewitnesses. Yeah, you'd think, right? I keep telling you guys. I bet a lot of them are doing the same things themselves. Why would they hide it so much? If you're only basing an investigation solely on a traumatized victim's ability to participate after the R, then that's a red flag, she said. Facts. Facts. And why all the victim blaming here? Are you a perpetrator? Because you sheriffs and police officers sure are sounding like perpetrators to me. In 2018, a woman showed up this is just getting me more angry, at the sheriff's office to report that her ex-boyfriend had R'd her about an hour earlier. She showed a deputy messages on her phone and said she'd be willing to undergo a forensic exam to look for DNA and other evidence. These people need to be relieved of duty. They need to be relieved of duty. Detectives told her an investigation could result in her ex-boyfriend serving time. So they're dissuading her from reporting crimes. They need to be relieved of duty. They asked her whether, knowing that, she really wanted to proceed. Unreal. This is unreal, you guys. It's really unreal. The woman hesitated and had a private conversation with her father, then told detectives she didn't want to move forward. Less than 2 hours after she reported the R, her case was closed. Thank God now he could go on to R more women, right? Thank God the police or the sheriffs helped to release another rapist into society to rape some more. Munch said the detectives focus on the consequences for the suspect. Can send a message to the women that either the detectives didn't believe her or that being R'd by an ex-boyfriend is less egregious than being R'd by someone else. It doesn't matter, like, what we think about that. What they did was dissuade her from reporting a crime, and they also helped to contribute to a rapist going on to rape more women. It's a fact. Galtieri. We're not afraid of messy cases. In a recent interview, Galtieri blamed some of the problems of misapplied exceptional clearances on previous supervisors. Of course, it's never their fault, is it? You always notice they always do the same thing. It just gets so boring. Of the detective unit that handles adult R cases. See how this is the blame shifting, you guys. He said that the sergeant overseeing the unit has been in the job for a little more than a year, and that he has been closing fewer cases exceptionally, and is instead putting many of them in a category called an in-house closure. Those cases don't count as cleared in federal statistics. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. These people disgust me. Galtieri said his office has limited resources. It's always their excuse. It's always their excuse. So then what is your job? It's always their excuse. Oh, we're limited resources. So just let criminals go free? What do you do if your resources are almost always limited? We know LAPD's resources aren't limited. Oh my God. And can't chase down cases where deputies aren't getting cooperation. See, it's a victim's fault, you guys. You see that? You think that they would care if their daughters got AR'd or their wives got AR'd? Come on. The 9 detective unit that investigates adult R cases also handles robberies and homicides. So what? As well as missing children cases. Yeah, the missing children cases that never get solved, you guys. You guys know where those kids go. Aggravated assaults and others. Excuse, 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 excuse. Men that hate women. Galtieri said his agency would never discourage a victim from cooperating. Boy, just exactly like LAPD. They all do the same things. They just lie, and they gaslight, and they make excuses, and they blame shift. His deputies will somehow show up at a hospital, and the woman will say she hadn't wanted the hospital to call, he said. That's just generic. These people don't care about women. The Times reviewed some cases where victims appeared adamant from the beginning that they did not want an investigation. Galtieri pointed to a recent arrest his agency made in 2 1998 sexual assaults as evidence of his agency's commitment to solving R's. In that case, the agency used DNA from a genealogy database to track down a suspect in violent stranger rapes. So I guess he only R'd 2 people, right, you guys? Come on. We're not afraid of messy cases or tough to prove cases. Yeah, right. That's what we do, Galtieri said. Please. Galtieri said he's not worried about serial rapists going free. Most of the cases his agency sees relate to a question of consent. You see that? You see the idiocracy and the misogyny and the hatred of women? Question of consent. Don't you understand what rape is? No means no. No means no, motherfucker. The same people that you are supposed to report these acts of violence to, they're committing the same crimes, you guys. That's just the truth. It's the truth. So right there, he just questioned every victim's validity. If they're reporting an act of violence, which is what this is, that means they said no. I would love to put the purge siren on right now, but I don't have anything in front of me. We don't have those serial rapists with the true victim. Why does anybody even pay attention to these fools? Animals, monsters that they put in these offices. Listen to this. I can hardly read this. Galtieri said, say a woman was asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and someone broke the window of the home, came in through the back, was dressed in black. We can make up whatever the scenario is. We're going to treat that very differently than this type of situation. What the fuck did he just say, you guys? What the fuck did he just say? Get him out. Just get him out. Some agencies may take cases to prosecutors, despite an uncooperative victim, he noted, which can lead to the cases getting closed at a later stage. It's all this guy talks about is the victim this, the victim that. Uncooperative victim, 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 victim. Advocates note that our cases pose special challenges. A lack of consent can be difficult to prove. Really? Not if you do a good physical exam. Same with children being assaulted. And they keep trying to put that on false memories, which don't exist, by the way. And you guys should know who created that false memory crap. Shame and fear and stigma can keep victims from cooperating, but they say such barriers are why rape investigations require extra care. Yeah, by someone like Galtieri, right? I did not know what I was stepping into, you guys. The Police Executive Research Forum, a nonprofit that recommends policy for police departments, we could trust them, right, has developed best practices for law enforcement agencies. None of them follow it, so what's the point? On handling sexual assault investigations, it stresses training law enforcement officers. How about getting some women in there? How about that? On handling traumatized victims, you also should have nurses on staff, properly coding cases and keeping bias or disbelief out of investigations. Yeah, Galtieri. That means, Galtieri, you can't keep blaming victims. Galtieri. I'm disgusted. Few issues were neglected for decades in the way sexual assault crimes have been discounted. The group's executive director wrote in a foreword in the 2018 guidebook. Even though this guy hates women, keeps blaming the victims, this idiotic Tampa Bay reporter keeps quoting his idiotic you-know-what. Galtieri said he is a member of the Police Executive Research Forum. Who cares? Who cares? That has nothing to do with why you guys are not investigating the R cases. Nothing to do with it. But said the group's guidelines can be somewhat idealistic and unrealistic. He's good at making excuses. In recent years, states like Illinois and New Jersey began requiring law enforcement officers to have specialized SA training. Although Florida offers specialized training, it's not mandatory. Strand, a consultant who has helped train Florida law enforcement officials to investigate ours, said his review of Pinellas cases show mistakes that are common in departments that lack updated training. It's always the excuse, but they do need training on handling SA assaults cases. He suggested doing away with non-prosecution forms and increasing the use of victim advocacy resources. Case cleared. Alicia recently read a copy of her file. She said it seemed like the investigators who wrote the report thought she had consensual SEX. Isn't that great, you guys? That's what they're framing an act of violence as rape. There's no indication in the case file that the detectives knew where the suspect lived. It's unreal, you guys. This is depressing. The case file notes that Alicia described telling a friend or friends some details of the assault shortly after it happened. Investigators never reached out to any of them or wrote their names in the file, so they don't want to investigate. A deputy noted that the suspect rented a room at the hotel on the day of the reported attack. What does that have to do with anything? When reached by the Times, the man listed in the case file expressed surprise that there was an investigation, saying he found it hard to believe that a RAPE was reported with his name attached, and investigators never spoke to him. He said he never had sex with Alicia. Well, a rape kit just solves that all day, every day. You see what's happening, you guys? It's so depressing. We're in 2025 and nothing has changed. It's actually gotten worse. We just talk about how we're going to solve the crimes, talk about how women shouldn't be getting abused, shouldn't be getting assaulted, shouldn't be getting hard. And then we get men like this that just cover it up even more than they used to. Because back in the old days, women just wouldn't report it. They just kept on getting abused. For months, Alicia said she saved her underwear from the night. That'll prove it. Blue with gray stripes in a plastic baggie. She always thought she'd need it at some point when she reported the RAPE. A few weeks after signing the non-prosecution form, however, she recalled walking to a dumpster at the apartment complex where she was living. She cried as she threw the underwear away. That was a bad move. That would have proved that he did it. Data reporter Connie Humpberg, staff writer Tony Marrero, and senior news researcher Karen Baird contributed to this report. Resources related to the sexual assault. They got the hotline in here. I just don't trust any of this. 800-656-HOPE. In Pinellas, the Sexual Assault Services Helpline, 727-530-7273. Maybe some of those child Scientologists can call that number. In Hillsborough, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay's hotline can be reached by dialing 211. I used to work at 211. There's not much they can do. All they can do is just give you more places to call. About the story. I don't want to read all that. That's about the stats and how it works. So I will leave a link in the description. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.